Hi, I'm Bryan, and welcome to Vinyl Paints. I've never been afraid to bite off more than I can chew artistically, and I definitely did that with this project. I decided to do this painting for my niece for her first birthday. I was probably the overambitious uncle on this, and looking back on it, I didn't have enough experience to probably actually do that. I think I had about 60 hours of footage for this video. And the reason why I waited so long to kind of post this video is because I didn't really have an idea of how to deliver this in a video. So I've kind of done something a little bit different here, where I've kind of tried to consolidate the footage for certain characters. So this time around it'll be Snoopy, Appa, Totoro, and Kiki. When I recorded this video, I had no intention of releasing these videos on YouTube. I was kind of just doing it for myself. And the whole YouTube thing came about later because I wanted to do conventions, and essentially a lot of the conventions were like, oh, you need to have some sort of social media presence. At the time I did this painting, I think I was about 3 or 4 paintings in, and I was still very new, and this was probably a bigger project than I should have taken on at this stage in my adventures in cel painting. But looking back on it now, I'm glad that I did, because I learned a lot. I pushed myself very further than I thought I would. Had I known what I was getting into when I did this, when I said, yes, I'm going to make this painting, or thought about it, I probably wouldn't have done it. It was so much work. I had never done anything with this many characters, on this size of a cel sheet before. There was just so many things going here that probably should have been like a giant red flag, but sometimes ambition can be a good thing, and just jumping in and getting started and trying to figure it out as you go works out for you. If you notice, when I actually paint a lot of these characters, they're actually very, very thick, and you can see here the Totoro, it is a little bit thicker, and my consistency on the paint now and my technique has changed a little bit, and now it's become a lot smoother and actually better. But it's interesting to kind of go back and look at this. This would actually end up being a problem. I probably didn't record it because it was kind of thick, which made it hard to put the two cells on top of each other. It wouldn't really lay flat on the background. And that's why I kind of am leaving in this part here. I'm going to give you a bit of a spoiler here. This turns out terribly. This gray that I chose for Totoro did not work at all, and I had already invested probably about 2 or 3 days painting. I knew this scene was going to be taking place at night, and you're going to see me flip over the page right here, and I'm just very disappointed with the color that had actually happened. Now luckily, because it's vinyl paint, I was able to peel it all up, and it kind of rolled up like a nice plastic. I think I did a pretty good job of clearing it off and saving the painting. But at this point here, I was really panicking and worried that it wasn't going to work. Luckily, Shop Dog came to the rescue to kind of calm me down and give me some moral support. This time around though, I kind of learned my lesson, and I kind of did a little color test on the bottom first. Like I said, I was very new to cel painting at the time. I had only done, I think, 3 paintings. If you've been following my videos for a while, the first one I ever did was the Clone Wars. I then started this painting here, the one you're looking at, and then I kind of stopped to do the Cyberpunk one, and then came back to finish this one. One of the advantages of actually doing a cel painting as opposed to an animation is that you can afford to use a little bit more color. Typically speaking, in animation, you usually have one base color, and then maybe you'll have a shadow or you'll have a highlight, but you really only usually do 2 tones. Because this was a painting and I was only going to do 1, I had a little bit of fun with the colors, and I think on the Appa I used 3 different tones of that off-white, and then on Totoro I think there was 5 different shades of gray. In regular animation though, this would be very expensive, and by expensive I mean it takes more time. Every time you add a color, depending on how intricate it is, it can actually double the time. So something that might take you 30 minutes might take an hour. This is something that I had the luxury of doing because I was just doing a one-off painting, but it's not something very common in animation. That's usually how you can tell a TV show from a movie, because they'll probably have a little bit more color and a little bit more shading. Not always the case, but just a good example. I knew right from the get-go that I wanted to have fiber optics in this, so I was playing a little bit loose with the shadows and kind of imagining where my fiber optics were going to go. The idea behind it is that there's light, like little magic dust coming out of the book that Kiki is reading. If you have watched the Cyberpunk video, you'll know there's not really a lot of interaction with the lights. I kind of move them around. This time would be different. This time I was actually going to be drilling holes into the actual cell for the fiber optics to go through. If you saw that little red thing flash through there, that's actually a lighter. I used some techniques from not only glass painters but also epoxy woodworkers, and they use that to pop bubbles in their stuff. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it worked for me. So this time around I'm much more happier with the Totoro. So here on Totoro's chest you'll see that I'm gonna do different shades and different tones, and it's really just because in my head I'd already decided, like, okay, that's where I'm gonna put some like a fiber optic light, and that would cause it to cast a different shadow there and just kind of move it around, and you'll see that on Uncle Iroh's arm and stuff, and that's why there's such a stark contrast in the colors. It's funny to look at this and think what could have been, because the original drawing I had done for this, Kiki was not the main, I guess, protagonist. I'd actually done a made-up character that I was like, oh, this is what my niece will look like when she's that age. But then I realized I had no idea what her style would be or what defining characteristics would be. So I decided to swap her out for Kiki. And right here, what you're seeing is what I'm doing is I never had a light table when I first started. Like, I had nothing. I had to kind of like keep finding the different solutions and different ways of doing it. So that's just me filling in little holes that I missed the first time around. And it's great that you see all the toothpicks here, because I only had 2 paintbrushes that I could really effectively use. So I relied very heavily on the toothpicks for fine details and getting close to the edges of the painting. I actually like my cool little comic book style cross hatching there. Eeyore's a little bit lonely here. I don't know if it'll make it into the video, but Tigger was supposed to be there, and because I changed around the layout of this because of the cell sheet was such an awkward size, Tigger just got forgotten. Going back to what I said earlier, it is kind of interesting to watch this. I don't come from a background in actual painting or animation. I'm just an absolute fan who loves this. And this art form is becoming, I guess, kind of disappearing, and I really just kind of wanted to keep it going. I think I have a larger learning curve than most people, because there's a lot of things that probably are very obvious to some people that I'm like experiencing for the first time while painting these things. And it's kind of interesting to kind of like look back on this and to see how much I progressed over the last 1.5 years, and still at the same time be amazed that I was, I guess, insane enough to even try such a project. One of the things I don't think I really included in this video is how I kind of compile this. I like to draw in envelopes. So pretty much what happens is I'll draw in an envelope and then I'll put it into my sketchbook, or maybe I'll draw my sketchbook, and I kind of like pieced it together, just a bunch of little characters. I hadn't learned also how to do colored lines yet, so I had to be a little bit more improvisational with my shadows and highlights. So as opposed to actually having like a rigid outline from an actual paper, lime paper or a Duga, I actually kind of just making it up as I go along. As I look through this video, reviewing it a year later, I'm kind of like amazed that I actually decided to tackle something so hard. And obviously there's areas where I look and where I've improved over the last year, but it's just kind of interesting because even now when I look at this, I'm not sure if I would have actually done this project. And there we have it. And that's where we're going to leave it this week. Thanks for watching. I'm Bryan, and this is Vinyl Paints.